with police and dead. Say the force is where killers are bred. So when I hear you complaining, I have to agree. Is you society guilty of police brutality against me? The brutal
society brutal. Yeah, on a Wednesday morning, you know, when you hear the voice of Keturah George, it is another program, The Conversation with the RGPF. I am your humble servant, Corporal 85 Jessel Grant, Eastern Division, Community Relation Department. And as per usual, take that opportunity to say blessed morning to all of our listeners of Real FM 91.9, 91.5. It is a privilege to be in studio this morning, and I can guarantee you that this morning's program, as per usual, will remind you or teach you something that you just ought to implement or use for this Yuletide season, Christmas season we're going into. But why is it that important? Because I heard on the press briefing yesterday that curfew has ended or has come to an halt at this stage. Hence, it makes us want to believe that we're back to business as normal. Is that the case? Oh, no, we're not. Because we still have some other protocols in regards to the new sheriff in town, Mr. COVID, that we need to pay attention to. So before we go into the program, I know you're seeing my guests, those of you who are streaming live. But before we hit into the program, let me remind you that COVID is still there. There is a new regulation, I think it's SRO 63, that is in effect as it regards to COVID. We still have not just protocol, but law in regards to wearing a face mask. And the law has removed face covering, whereby before persons just used to cover their nose, mouth, and chin with anything. But now the law says that you ought to wear a mask covering nose, mouth, and chin. Sorry, you still need to be sanitizing your hands. You still need to be washing your hands. You still need to be guided as to the 6 feet distancing. Persons who want to have activities for the season, you have to be reminded that you need to make your necessary applications, not just for amplified music and liquor license, but getting permission to have a social activity where the capacity is over 75 persons. So let us be aware of the COVID laws that is in effect, even if there is no curfew at this stage. So that's a bit for it. Yes, the ticket remains for breach of offenses for that of $550. Yes, if you're breach, you can still be arrested by myself and my colleagues, which we don't want to. So just abide and we would have a safe Yuletide. All right? So in studio with me this morning is a new guest. He has never been on program with me before. And as such, let me take this opportunity to say good morning to him. He's well attired. I had never had anyone on this program in jacket and tie. Good morning to you, Detective. How are you?
Good morning to you, Ms. Grant, and good morning to the listening public. I'm doing okay.
Well, by way of introduction, can you just let our listeners know who are you and where are you attached?
Okay, well, I'm the Detective Corporal number 24, Antoine, presently attached to Criminal Investigation Department, Grenville, and that's in the Eastern Division. I've been a member of the Royal Grenada Police Force for close to 14 years now.
Wow.
And attached to CID for the past 4 years.
Great. So prior to CID, where have you been attached for that 14 years period?
Well, actually, I worked about 8 years at the Rapid Response Unit, which is known as RRU. I worked around the country. My face should be well known by many.
Well, apart from that, you are a very sociable person. So apart from the execution of your duty and having spent 8 years at the Rapid Response Unit, persons would know that you're not just the type that look to lock up, but you also have that aspect of you that wants to reform person and remind them that there is an alternative road to walking in contravene to the law. That's my perception. Is that true or not?
Well, for me, I would say yes, it is. It's a very truthful statement of my personality. One of the things I always tell people is that I came in the police force to ring in and usher in a change, that we don't always have to use force to try to correct somebody. Yeah. And in other ways we could, teach them. Because a lot of people don't know some of the things that they may be involved in is really an offense.
Right.
And maybe if you educate a person, then they become knowledgeable of that offense, and they tend to shy away from it in the future.
Certainly, and as a detective, you can't, or you couldn't put it better. But let me just take a brief break and say good morning to Stephen Francis. That's one of our stalwarts in listening to our program. So he always tuned in and always sends his good morning, which he already do. Yes, ex-corporal, retired corporal, I will stay safe. My guests would be safe as we continue to serve. And it's a partnership between the police and the community. So this morning, with Corporal Antoine in studio with me, as per usual, information that is disseminated here is not just for the Eastern Division, but that of the country at large, or wherever you are listening from. And considering that it's the time of the year when persons spends more, wants more, and everything else is more catchy to their eyes and wants to follow the crowd, we're going to discuss something that is not new, but it's a good reminder, and for persons who don't know of it, to pay particular attention. So as my colleague would say, you heard the program, you heard my voice, call a friend, call a family member, and tell them, tune into Real FM. Go to our Facebook Live page, Real FM, and let us participate in the program. Because this morning we're looking at the topic, target hardening. What really is target hardening?
Well, Ms. Grant, target hardening, in a nutshell, and to put it in terms that the normal person will understand out there. Target hardening is really making it difficult, not impossible, but difficult for someone to commit an offense. And most of the time we look at target hardening, we tend to look at that crime triangle.
Okay.
And you may wonder, what is the crime triangle? The crime triangle is very simple. It have on one side desire, ability, and opportunity, right? And it's very simple. From time to time, there is persons who have criminal intent, and so we call it a desire.
Right.
That person, in layman terms, they say they may walk on the road, and the intention is to call a shot. You understand? In our language, to call a shot. They left home, and all they have in the back of their head is to call a shot. So that we put in the terms of desire, right? And with the intention, they may carry implements that will allow them, if the opportunity arises, to carry out such an offense, right? However, in the crime triangle, we do not have control of a person's desire and really ability. What we do have control over is the opportunity given to an offender to complete the crime triangle, thus making it possible that a crime be committed, right? And here we come back to crime prevention measures.
So before you go into the crime prevention measures, when you say in our local, call a shot, what exactly you referring to?
Well, I'm basically referring to some persons, whether it's to steal something, but basically we're in the Christmas season, and there is usually an uptick in theft and property crime, mainly stealing, larceny, stealing, right? And there's a lot of people, some don't want to work, some want to have nice stuff. So, by any means, right? And illegally, to get stuff, they're willing to go the route. So they leave home with the intention, anything they could pounce on. So that is the intention.
Well, I'm so happy that you use that language, because for the elder class or more mature persons would say, that is within the community, traveling on a bus or somewhere and hearing person or persons saying, I'm going to call a shot, may not understand. But from this morning's program, you give that person a wider knowledge that when they hear this local parlance, as to put it into perspective as to exactly what they should be thinking outside of the box. So hence the reason for soliciting what really it is. I know you said that in the crime triangle there are three major or main elements, and there is only one that the owner has authority to. How best do you advise that person in terms of the reduction of that
Opportunity.
the opportunity to eliminate or cut down on it? What advice you would give?
Well, we'll have to sectionize it. Firstly, let's deal with the offense of housebreaking and stealing, right? Sometimes we leave shiny object where persons with the desire and the ability, right, could easily see, and that will intrigue them.
Right.
Do you understand? So you may have, let's say you have a house and it's a 2-story house and it's a downstairs, and you may leave a cell phone or a computer close to a window,
Right.
right? That person who has that desire, which we call intention and ability, will pounce on that.
Right.
So we try to limit the opportunity to offenders by whatever means. Leaving stuff in a vehicle again.
Right.
A vehicle is only one stone throw away from having all its items being stolen.
Yes.
And those are just some of the little things. As we say now is the Utile, the festive season. Persons will be going around shopping. Advice we normally give persons is that you don't necessarily in this modern time have to walk around with a lot of cash on you. Most of the stores, the supermarket, if you have a ATM card, you can swipe it, and that will save you the trouble of having to face this dreadful crime of person stealing cash from you, stealing your wallet. And if you have cash, exposing it in public is something that we say is a no-no. Because what happens normally, there's a huge volume of shoppers
Right.
in the various towns. And that would be in the various supermarket and store. Right? And you go there and you expose those cash. Persons with the intention and ability to, then you will be giving them an opportunity.
Right.
You understand? So we want to avoid that. So it's really thinking,
Right.
really, when we out there, what somebody who intend to commit a crime, what they will be looking for. And we blocking up all those spaces.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
So that was it's really about, especially in the festive season, everybody likes to have stuff around those time. We understand that some person may not be working. Some people do not want to get stuff legally, and hence the reason why we see every Christmas time and around festive time, even Carnival to an extent, that property crimes usually goes up.
Definitely.
And that's why the Royal Grenada Police Force, on a yearly basis, we have these programs to educate and to encourage our people, our citizens, to prevent as much as we could.
Right. So, just to backtrack a bit on housebreaking, most time persons hear of housebreaking and they think of their dwelling house. In regards to target hardening and also property crimes offenses that are committed, what advice do you have for and to business owners or operators as we are in this season?
Well, for business owners, as it relates to target hardening, and it's something that is done almost every year, before COVID at least.
Right.
We'll always we'll encourage them to have, especially as you get closer to Christmas, police present in the business places, added security, right? Cameras is a deterrent.
Right.
We always encourage business places to invest in CCTV. That acts as a deterrent. And just being alert in general. Just have a level of alertness, because you will be dealing with a volume of persons in and out of your store that not normally happens on a daily basis. So sometimes you yourself may have to employ somebody some security, just to oversee the smooth running, because it's no fun that you have your business and you made $1,000 for the day, and when the day is up, that was just stolen.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's some of the things that we encourage business places, and
In regards to the security of their funds, because we know it's Christmas, whether it's for shopping or for other reasons, persons will visit those business places, be it the Indian stores, the supermarkets, or even the community shops. What advice would you give to them in regards to the securing of their cash or funds?
Well, for most of the major businesses, I know what normally happens is that whenever there is a deposit of cash, they will involve they will involve officers to do deposit to the banks. And we encourage the businesses in general, do not let huge sums of cash build up in the business places.
Right.
Have a timing in which you could, at a certain amount, when you reach a certain amount of cash, you deposit it. You understand? Involve as much as you could somebody, some officer, or do it in a way that it is not so apparent to other persons that you're moving cash.
Right.
Do you understand? And there are security firms also that deals specifically with moving of cash for business places. So you would want to involve the relevant security companies.
I hope I'm not jumping ahead of your delivery or your material, but many a times when we talk of property crimes, persons would always say that my place was broken into, and when you visit the scene, you would realize, well, it was not a house breaking, and still it was some other offense that commits. In light of Yuletide, and still sticking to the topic of target hardening,
Right.
what are some other pointers that you can lead to homeowners and business owners to look for and at that when they go to their property and they see things that is unusual, that it should raise a red flag and they should contact the police?
Well, some of the things that will cause a person to believe that the house is broken into is if you secured your house, meaning that you lock all doors and windows, and you may come home and observe a window partially open, while you may not see stuff move around in the house, then it's a good sign that something has happened. And if you believe that, and you call the police, and we normally advise persons that when such offense is committed, that you try your best not to touch or tamper with the place too much once you observe that something has happened in your place. We always advise that you call the police and you wait, because we have experts that can fingerprint and do other stuff, so that we can solve that crime in time to come. So we advise that if you go home and you realize your place tampered with, you call the police and you try as much as to leave the scene as is, so that the officers could, when they arrive, gather evidence to solve that offense.
Okay. So listeners, we are tuned into Real FM 91.9, 91.5, and in studio with me as my guest is Corporal Antoine, attached to the Grenville or the Eastern Division CID Department station at Grenville Police Station. And this morning we're discussing the topic of target hardening. How can you make yourself and your place non-susceptible to the commission of a crime, and by protecting one property? We'll take a brief commercial break and we'll be right back with the conversation with the RGPF.
Well, thank you, darling. I'm here finishing my blog post to help homeowners understand their electricity bills. The left side of your bill shows the rates for electricity and the government charges. The middle portion shows the number of units you've consumed, plus the history of your usage over the last 8 months. And the right side shows how much you're being charged.
I really think people are going to value this information.
Grenlec, energizing our...
The things we love are worth holding tight. Dancing at weddings, bus tours around the country, watching football and cricket at the stadium, catching up with friends, visiting grandparents, and traveling outside the country. To keep doing the things we love, there's something we need to do first. Get vaccinated for COVID-19. Get vaccinated, and let's get back to the life the way we enjoyed it. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health Grenada and the Pan American Health Organization.
Yeah, police brutality, Keturah George. But let's not take it in its literal stage, but instead let us look at how best we can bridge that aspect of it. How best can we work together in making our society safer to be and to live with. This program is none other than the conversation with the RGPF, and we're discussing target hardening. What can I do to protect my property? What can I do to protect myself, given that we're in the Yuletide season, given that there are a lot of persons who has lost their job as a result of COVID. There are a lot of persons who has shortened time. So 2019 Christmas and 2021 Christmas would not be the same. So what can you do as a homeowner, business owner, or as a citizen to ensure that the property that are entrusted within your care, our care, how best can we ensure that it is protected from those who fail and chooses to vandalize? How can we make that target? But while in studio with me is Corporal Antoine from CID Eastern. And most time you hear of CID, you think of the indictable offenses, the serious offenses. There are times when we work together and they have to assist other departments. And speaking of Yuletide or the Christmas season, and on the basis of target hardening, help me out, Corporal, in regards to pretty larceny offenses are offenses that is committed against livestock. And as we normally would hear in the media, our farmers would say, I medicated my animal just recently and now it is stolen. And based on the time in which it was stolen, it is just anticipated that it would be or had been slaughtered. What advice do you have to give to persons, whether as a homeowner wanting to purchase the meat, because you know it's the time of the year where beef sells the most, or just for the owners of these livestock as to how best they can ensure that their animals are protected from theft?
Well, one of the things that we see around the Christmas time, there is an increase in larceny. And when I say larceny, stealing in general, and pretty larceny as well, especially as it relates to livestock. So we want to encourage persons around this time of the year. Normally persons will have the goats and sheep tied close to the road, and then it's easily stolen. Person passing a vehicle and pass around with van and just hops it up by the road and you know, evening time, night time, makes away with it.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage persons, even though you have your animal tied maybe close to a road, you want to ensure evening time you have some place to bring it close to your home. You understand? So that you could limit the opportunity of persons who have that intention and ability to steal. Right? As it relates to animal that is medicated, I won't say that I'm 100% sure, but I don't think that if an animal has gotten some sort of medication, the meat will be good for consumption by human during a time period. I think that it would have to wear out in the animal's body over a period of time, right? So those are things that we need to be mindful of, and persons who normally deals with purchasing of animal, questions should be asked. And there is the Pretty Larceny Act as it relates to receipt and accountability of persons when it comes to buying livestock and other produce. You understand? Just before we go a little further, Ms. Grant, come back to the different offense of stealing. When it comes to business places or houses, there is different categories of stealing. We touch on housebreaking. And housebreaking is basically when you secure your property, meaning your house or your business place, and someone forcefully, whether it's they open a door, a window, and then they enter and makes away with something, we call it housebreaking. But then there is offense where you may have forgotten your door open and someone enters your house and steals something. And that is categorized as stealing from a dwelling house. Right? There is instances where somebody just was into your house. They didn't have time to steal anything, but they were there illegally. So we call it unlawful entry. Right? Under the Pretty Larceny Act, there is trespassing as well. Right? And there is numerous offenses that relate to the different crimes, especially property crimes when it comes, especially around Christmas time, Utah season.
As you speak of those offenses, something came to my mind. I know John Public to be a notorious breaker. And I see him at Jack James' yard with quote-unquote pig toe or a hammer. I didn't see him do anything, but I know I noticed him. I'm able to describe him by what he was wearing, where I saw him. And 2 days after, I learned that Jack James' house was broken into. What should I do having that information?
Well, any information relating to a crime, you should contact the police. Persons may have police officers who they can confide in. If you have such police officer, it doesn't matter which district or which station, you pass on the information, and the station, we have one police force, so the information will be brought to the relevant station and department, and it will help most of the time in solving of a crime. Right? So whatever information the public may have as it relates to any offense, it's always our encouragement to pass on those information to the relevant authorities.
By the nature of seeing him, as I said, being a notorious breaker and seeing him with that object or instrument, does that alone contribute to the commission of a crime, or is it just okay?
Well, yes, it could. There is a such crime, right? If persons is found, we call it found with breaking implements.
All right.
And there is certain articles that is used in the commission of a crime. Once they're found in your possession, you could be charged.
Okay.
Right? And especially persons with a background, as you're explaining,
Okay.
then you'll have to explain.
All right.
But you could be charged for being in possession of those breaking implements.
There is this other offense. I don't know if it's of the book or it's just minimized in terms of unlawful possession or having things in your possession that you cannot give rightful account or ownership of. And considering it's Yuletide season, persons give all sorts of excuses are seen with stuff. We're not saying that Tom Jones can't have or acquire it, but if someone as a community member notices something that he or she believes it's not normal, he don't farm, he don't have anything, but you see him selling or you sees him offering or have it in his possession, what advice would you give to that community member or citizen to do?
Well, as I previously stated, whatever information that you have as it relates to the commission of a crime, and person who are known to be involved in criminal activities, you should always pass that information to the various station. As I said, you may not want to pass it to the station, but you may have a police officer that you can confide in. You call that person and you give them that information. In addition, if persons is found with items and an officer believe that they were acquired by you committing some offense, then you could be charged for the offense, or you could be charged for having in your possession something that you cannot explain to the police officer how you get it. But obviously the officer will carry out his investigation, right? And if it is found that you came about having that in your possession illegally, then you will be charged, right? So some of the things we look for is how did you get that in your possession? You will have to explain that. And if it does not satisfy the police officer, then you could be charged.
Tell me about finding an object property and keeping it. Well, as school children, finders are losers. or losers are finders, something of the sort. But if I were to think deep back in my subconscious, the law speaks differently to that. Am I correct?
Yes, the law definitely speaks different as it relates to finding object or finding anything. Because most of the time, anything has an owner, right? And it may have dropped from them, or so on and so forth. And the law speaks to a person finding an item. If you find an item, according to the law, you should be brought to the police station soonest, or to some registration where they could announce to the public
Right.
that this item has been found, and whosoever is the owner, most of the time they will say come with some form of ID to retrieve same.
Right.
Right? Failure to do so, there is an offense called stealing by finding.
Right.
If that person who loses that item, right, makes a report to the police station, and then it is found in your possession, then you can be charged under the Criminal Act, and the charge, namely stealing by finding. So finders is not keepers according to the law. You find something, you have a responsibility to bring it into the nearest police station or radio station soonest.
Okay.
And that is a person's responsibility in finding any items.
Right.
Yeah.
As usual, as a detective, you could never do a program with me, especially at this time, and do not give some enlightenment as it regards to that of sexual offenses. And the thing is, it's not just perpetrated against our female folk or to our young girls, but the law has, it's also been perpetrated or committed against our male folks. And also our young boys have been victim to that offense. So with Christmas, no curfew thus far. Persons, quote unquote, wants to free up, will free up. We know what Grenville, as our capital, our town, normally be like on a festive season. What advice do you have as a detective to our parents and guardians? And after you finish giving them the advice, I want you to leave something with our young persons as to how best they can protect themselves.
Well, the advice I would give to parents of kids is that make sure that your kids, in your absence, there is proper supervision of your kids. You can't get away from supervision. Supervision goes a long way, right? As to what will happen in your absence.
Right.
Have a responsible adult around that could take care of your kids, right? Another thing is communication, right? Whenever you send your kids out, and you may not be around, if you cannot have adults with them, depends on the age. You may want to have a cell phone. You give them a cell phone, and you call and check on them, see where they're at. You understand? And set guidelines. You're going to Grenville. This is 11 o'clock. I want you back home by 4 o'clock.
Right.
And ensure that your timeline is being kept. You understand? And during that time, you should, as much as communicate,
Right.
so they have that presence of mind to know that they should do what they have to do, or they came to do, and get it done and be back home smartly, right?
Right.
Also, to the young persons, realize that it's Christmas and it's a festive time. What I do know is that alcohol should be consumed by a person 18 and over. Should be sold and consumed to persons 18 and older. And I would want to encourage the young persons to, as much as, obey the law and refrain from consuming alcohol and other illegal substance.
Right.
Because majority of the time when you're carrying out your investigation, especially in some of these sex offense and other offense involving juveniles, you see that alcohol had a part to play in it.
Right.
The consuming of alcohol, because most of these young people, when they go out around those times, a lot of the times that's the first time they come in contact with consuming alcohol and other drugs, and they lose control of the ability to make proper decision.
Yeah.
And persons who, again, we come back to the crime triangle, they get an opportunity.
Yes.
Do you understand? So also places where you would want to lime or want to hang out, you should choose those places wisely.
Right.
You know, you don't want to be in a place where, based on what is happening, is conducive to something awful happening to you.
Right.
Right? And then another thing is, you would want to have friends around.
Right.
You understand? Because being by yourself give the opportunity to someone to easily to cause some kind of offense against you, especially as young girls.
Right.
You'd want to have friends wheresoever you're going. You'd want to have friends with you, and you'd want to avoid ending up in dark areas by yourself. You know, so that.
But as we speak to the young persons, there is a piece of legislation that is slowly slipping in terms of the understanding of persons, especially those females or girls, teenagers, who think we are hotter and hot and cuter and cute and do not use it for the right purpose, but instead the snapping of the photo or taking of pictures, and also that of videos, and sending it to male perpetrators who disguise themselves or perceive to be boyfriend, girlfriend, and sending it out. What advice do you have to persons as it regards to the commission of violation of privacy in displaying of photos and videos of other persons?
Well, firstly, I would say to anybody, right, to refrain from sending photos of nudity, right? Whether you'll be young, whether you'll be old, because the internet is unforgiving sometimes,
Yes.
right? But there is offenses as it relates to invasion of privacy under the Electronics Crimes Act, that anybody transmit any photo of a person's private parts without their consent, right? This is an offense.
Right.
And the persons have been prosecuted for that offense in the past, and it's a hefty sum based on the court proceeding in the past, right? Also, engaging in online relationship with person underage. We have made arrests in the past for persons who engage in sexual relationship or cultivating sexual relationship with minors. Presently, there is a court case where a person have been arrested, where he was basically courting a young lady that is presently in court.
Okay.
So those are offenses that is on the books, and person needs to be mindful of, right? And parents who have knowledge that this may be happening to your child, you can always make a report and it will be dealt with, right? So it's not only if a photo is sent that you could be charged for sending that photo. If you realize somebody is having conversation of a sexual nature with your minor, you can report it, and the police will investigate.
Well, also, I want to stick in or add a part here that our young persons or persons using technology or device through internet to communicate, that they should always seek to get the true identity of who they're communicating with. and not just only to take the name that is displayed on their status DP, but also try to get to know who they're communicating with. And bear in mind that when you hit that send button or when you say go, there is nothing you can do. And even if it's recalled, somebody have it stored on the device and it can always be resurfaced. So I know there are a lot of children at home because schools are phasing out. I just want to remind you, I just want to beg and implore of you parents and guardians, even if you're not technology savvy, even if you don't have that good command, speak to your children, speak to your young person as it regards to sending of photos and videos to persons who request it. Let them remember that the identity, the ego, and the self-image has a lot to do with them, not just for the moment of that so-called friend, but also that of their future as they continue. But I have a final one for you, and I can't have a detective here and don't touch on that issue that is giving us some form of trouble. I know you were not prepared for it, so if you can't, I'm prepared to accept that. But some word of advice to the idle hands, that things that they have good associates and chooses to find themselves using illegal firearm. As a detective, what advice you have to these idle hands? I don't want to categorize it by gender, so I say idle hands that choose to break the law as it regards to illegal firearm and ammunition.
Well, first up, to have a firearm in one's possession without being the holder of the relevant license authorizing a person to have it in their possession is an offense.
Okay.
Right? So it's an offense to have any firearm or ammunition in your possession if you're not the holder of a license. Right? So I would want to encourage persons to refrain, really. And I know back then we had a period where persons could have brought in illegal firearms and no charges would have been laid. But however, we still encourage that.
Right.
We still encourage persons, because sometimes you stumble upon a firearm, you know.
Yeah.
Because it have a lot of firearms from the revolution and stuff like that.
Means, yeah.
You understand? And persons with information also about persons who may have firearms in their possession. As I stated earlier on, sometimes you do not want to call the station, but you may have a police officer who you can confide in. You give them that information.
Right.
They may not be working in the department or the unit, but they would ensure that that information reaches the persons responsible for dealing with such offenses. Right? So, as I said earlier on, once you do not have a license, you shouldn't have a firearm.
Right.
And it's plain and simple. You shouldn't have a firearm in your possession or ammunition.
Okay.
Because you could be charged, you could be charged for either or both.
Right.
So you could say, well, officer, he's only had 2 wrongs. You could be charged for possession of ammunition.
Okay.
Also, there's a lot of pellet guns and other fake guns going around. Right? I remember recently charging someone for using a firearm. And you would say it was a fake in the commission on offense. There is a such charge.
All right.
So even having a fake, let's say a water gun, you spray it in black and you go and try to hold up somebody with that.
Right.
You could be charged for having it.
Right.
Right.
Well, as usual, Corporal, I know you'll just get comfortable and soaked in, but our hour has swiftly got out of us. And we'll just continue to remind our listeners that for the Yuletide season, we best protect ourselves and also our loved ones and the property. So in studio with me was Corporal Antoine, attached to the Criminal Investigation Department of the Eastern Division. And I want to say it was a pleasure having you in studio. And as we continue to work together, to see you again some other time. God bless you one and all. To your listeners, we'll continue to talk the conversation with the RGPF. See you again next Wednesday with another program, The Conversation with the RGPF.
Informative, entertaining, and first.